We are live. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're listening from. I think most people are from the UK. If you're not, get into the comments, say hello, tell us where you're from. And if you are from the UK, also get in the comments and tell us where you're from. And yeah, say hi. Obviously, the more involvement we get, the better questions get asked, and the more Chris can direct those answers to the right questions, right? But it's nice to have you here. If you're not here, where are you? To start with. But as you can tell, I'm now feeling time to give people a chance to join here, Chris.
You're doing a good job of it.
This is the uncomfortable bit of doing a live conversation where you want to record it, but we also need to let people join and get involved as well. So yeah. And standard LinkedIn live stuff. Where are we? We've got 30 seconds and we'll get going. So as I said, look, we've got somebody saying hello already. Nick Page, UK, London-ish. Whereabouts in London-ish are you, Nick? Copenhagen. Look, we have got people outside the UK.
Oh, hey, Stephen.
Yeah, Luke, and you can see this as well. Yeah, Chris, I didn't go through this.
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Yeah. Look at this. People joining. And if you are here, guys, obviously, thank you for joining and already adding comments. If throughout this you have a question for Chris, then please add that to the chat and I will kind of try to get that question over to him. I've got some questions I want to be asking and we'll lead with that. But when I get a chance, I will ask those questions. If I can manage the multitasking of trying to listen to Chris and trying to read questions, being a dyslexic, can also be a bit of a challenge. So bear with me if it takes me a little while to read those questions out. But thank you for joining. Let's get going, Chris. Yeah, have that perfect timing. Just take a drink. It's lovely to have you here, mate. I'm really excited for this. There's two things that really stand out for me for you is the passion behind men's therapy, men's mental health, but also this connection with the Men's Therapy Hub and what you're doing. So I think an opportunity to share the story around your own personal story and your journey and why this is so passionate to you. Because I think people sharing stories is important, but also some of the things you've learned along this journey and how you're implementing that now as a therapist and a coach, but also with Men's Therapy Hub and some of the challenges around men getting into therapy. And maybe we can brainstorm that as well.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So Chris, look, what I would like from you is just to start with an introduction. Can you tell me and everybody listening who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so hi, I'm the founder of Men's Therapy Hub, which is a dedicated directory currently in the UK. We're going to be expanding into the US sometime in the spring. And it is a directory of male therapists for male clients. I'm also a psychotherapist and coach, and I specialize in working only with men. And the reason that I do that is because when I was on my therapy training course, I was one of 3 men who graduated. There were, in fact, more women of color who graduated on the course than there were men, which is great for women of color, of course. And there were still too few of them, might I add. And yeah, there was only three men. And from my work and conversations I've had subsequently with a lot of male therapists, 3 is actually quite a high number for men on a therapy course. Usually we're talking 1s and 2s. So, you know, you go on to the major therapy directories and it is just a sea of female faces. And I figured as a privately educated middle-class Englishman, being a minority, not for the first time because I'm also queer and bisexual, but really feeling like a minority for the first time and having done work in businesses with my other organization, Empath, where we're trying to help men to engage with the DEI efforts that are happening rightly to increase representation for women, for queer people, for disabled people, for people of different races and ethnicities, all of that. I thought, well, actually, this is what's needed in the therapy profession because 20% of therapists in the UK are male, psychotherapists are male, and that number is declining. And fewer than 1/3 of therapy clients are male. And the dropout rate for men in therapy is astronomically high. You know, somewhere in the region of between 40 and 50% of men drop out of therapy prematurely. So Nick has said we had 4 in a group of 15. All right, Nick, that's the highest percent. That's the highest number I've heard so far in terms of percentage. That's an anomaly. So thanks, Nick, for dismantling my argument within 5 minutes. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I don't know where to go with that.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to touch on some of this stuff in more detail as we go through this, around potentials about why people are jumping into men's therapy and stuff like that, right? But before we get there, I really want to give people to understand the why, really. So it'd be nice to know your why, right? I know it, but just so we can create it for everybody else.
Sure.
Any for you?
So I'm 26 and my dad's diagnosed second time, same cancer. So people who know about cancer, very often if it comes back pretty gnarly and with vengeance. And he was given short amount of time to live. And he and I and my brothers, my two older brothers, we responded to it in the way that we had been trained to respond to it, which was to ignore it, which was to pretend like it wasn't happening. My dad did. He didn't want to talk about the fact that he was dying. He'd never been particularly keen on us as young men or boys to engage with our emotions in that way. And after he died, I found that the best way for me to deal with it was to try to take as much cocaine as I could, and drink alcohol and go out basically 3-4 months almost continually. I've done the research. It works short term. And I just didn't have the tools, the capability, the people around me who were able and willing to actually engage with the pain that I was feeling. And so I felt like that was my only option. 3-4 months down the line, I had two of my really good friends, Sean and Rob, who I've spoken about many times and thanked them many times, come to me and say, listen, man, this is not okay. Like, you need to stop. You're really hurting yourself. And as soon as I stopped the drugs and alcohol, I had a complete emotional breakdown. And the thing for me was, at the time, as I mentioned jokingly earlier, as a privately educated, middle class English guy, on paper, it didn't make any sense that somebody like me should be struggling. Because, I had all of the privileges that life could afford you. I didn't grow up like incredibly wealthy, but my family were wealthy enough to send us to private school. So it was this confusion for me. And at the time, I was a BBC journalist. And so I was in this early stages of my journalism career, and I thought, well, hang on a second, maybe I should try to tell my own story and try to figure out, like, what the hell happened to me along the way that could help to explain that. And I don't need to go into too much detail to explain that, because all of the statistics that we all know now about male mental health, they weren't really very well known back then. And I learned in 2014, the suicide statistics for the first time. And my mind was blown. I couldn't believe, first of all, that wasn't something that was better known. And often the suicide statistics are framed as the biggest killer of men under. Well, actually, the best way for me to frame it was, the most likely way I will die today is by choosing not to live. And that's still true today. I'm 39, right? That's still true today. The most likely way that I will die today is by choosing not to live. And that was absurd to me. So I started to research. I started to think about what I started to write about. My first ever piece of writing, because I was freelance, I wrote for The Independent, Why Do My Male Tears Make People So Uncomfortable? And that was written because I'd started to open up emotionally. And then I watched the film Marley and Me, which is the one with the Labrador that dies. And like, I had a Labrador when I was a kid. I'd never seen this movie before. And I'm just sat on the side, the dog has died. Like, and my ex came in and she just didn't know what to do with me. And I'm like a 110 kilo, 6'3" guy sobbing on the sofa, and like, she didn't know how to handle that. And I don't blame her for that. Like, culturally, this is not something that we've had to deal with. So I then started to write. I wrote a book. I wrote a book about men and masculinity, and then people started asking me to do talks. And because I'm a man, I said sure. And then after these talks, one school said to me, hey, do you do workshops? And because I'm a man, I was like, yeah, sure. And then and the workshop, and then basically on the back of that, I launched Empath, which is a business now that goes into schools. We have like 6 different facilitators, and I don't run that anymore because I don't live in the UK. I live in Denmark because I married a Dane a few years ago. But basically, my story moves from there, and I started to think and write, and I made documentaries for the BBC about men and masculinity and mental health. And then my friend Charlie died, or was about to die, and I was away traveling at the time, dealing with a tough breakup. And I met this woman, Annie, who is your pocket therapist on Instagram, 500,000 followers, very successful. She wasn't at the time; she was just Annie, and she was training to be a therapist. And she was just like, "You need to put your money where your mouth is, man. Like, you're doing all this work, and you're saying that you want to help men. Well, the best way to do that is to like go to the coalface and meet them." And I'm like, "What? I'm some like former rugby dude from Manchester who like goes out partying and like, what the fuck? I can't be a therapist. Like, what are you talking about?" Which is kind of the point, right? Because why can't I be a therapist? I was speaking to Stephen Hall, who's one of the guys on Men's Therapy Hub for our podcast, which is called No Man's an Island. And, you know, likewise, he was just like, how could I be a therapist? I'm just some bloke from Cumbria. Like, what? The point is, people like us need to go into therapy. So we need to see people who look like and sound like and speak like us on the other side of the sofa, is how I describe it. So I trained to be a therapist. And the training was the most foundational, just monumentally life-changing, because we learned stuff about ourselves. You know, we're sitting in lectures and we're learning about like, okay, here's self-worth. We're having a whole section on self-worth. And like people sitting there just going like, oh my God, that's me. Like, oh, and then we have these beautiful conversations and just incredible. But there was just this one thing missing the whole time. And I've been learning about men and masculinity for nearly a decade at this point, and I just keep putting my hand up, much to the chagrin of my colleagues, just being like, but this doesn't sound like it would make sense to men. Like this approach, like, what do you mean I can't self-disclose? What do you mean that I can't tell the therapist, that the client, about myself? Like, these guys are terrified of being in therapy. And sometimes they need to be met in the reality of like, okay, I have some understanding of that because, you know, I've been through something similar. And little things like that. And it just started to think like this, while my therapy course was fantastic, and we learned about how to work with all kinds of differences, which is great. And yet I was one of very few elephants in the room. And we're not talking about the differences of working with men. And I have only just recently found out that there is about to be a course where they are bringing somebody in to talk about how to work with men in therapy, finally. But that's absurd, because men, as I said before, and Nick, you're asking in the comments, when I say men tend to leave prematurely, do you mean abruptly and without a proper ending? Yes, prematurely. They leave early. They leave before the work has actually worked, or they've done any depth of work. And the biggest reason, this is Dr. Zach Seidler's work in Australia, the biggest reason men leave is because they don't feel seen and understood by their therapist. Well, yeah, of course you don't, because the person sat opposite you doesn't sound like you, doesn't speak like you, and actually is taught to talk like this to you. Let's be very soft. I'm going to talk like that. Like, who fucking talks like that? I talk like this. So that's how I talk to my clients. I talk to them how they're used to being spoken to as men, which is directly, sometimes confrontationally, hopefully with some compassion and empathy too. But I'll challenge them. I'll encourage them. I'll call them on their bullshit where I see it. Because that's how I'm used to being spoken to as a man. And that doesn't work for all of my clients, of course not. But for a lot of them, they stay because they feel like they're being met. And that's it. So that was a very long answer to your question, right? So that's how I've gone from being a completely unemotional, confused wreck to trying to change the therapy industry to get more people in, to get more men into therapy.
Yeah. So there is a lot to unwrap there. Thank you first off for sharing your story. But I'm going to dive back into that story. I'm obviously just seeing Nick commenting as well. Thank you. This is why we put this episode on, right? I want to dive into kind of being in that rock bottom moment when you just lost your dad. You said, what, 3 or 4 months of just drug use?
Yep.
what was that like, that moment, and how did it feel? And then what was it that got you out of that moment? Obviously, your friends were there challenging you, but yeah, just take us back.
The way I describe it is, I had not been prepared for that level of pain. Living a relatively charmed life, first of all, but also any pain, any difficulty, any challenge, and I've worked through this with my therapists over the years now in great detail, just how much I had suppressed, just how much I believed I had lived a charmed life, partly because of the kind of there's kids starving in Africa approach. So don't dare say that you have any troubles or pain, which was kind of like a refrain for our generation. And also growing up with my dad, who was, by the way, loving and caring, was a brilliant father in like the vast majority of ways, and just like every parent fucks up their kids somehow, and this was the way that he did it, right? It was this boys don't cry. It was Be a Man, which was the name of my book, which is why I called it that. And so I hadn't had any practice of it. So basically my dad dies, and then I go to my emotional toolbox and it's empty. So I just fill it with cocaine because it worked, right? It's a fantastic emotional suppressant. Again, it's not a sales pitch for it, but like it is a fantastic emotional suppressant. Add the booze onto it and you're sorted. But to the point where like I was dragged off air by the head of BBC North because I was working in BBC Salford at the time. And I was just like, I'm a former semi-professional cricketer. And I'd forgotten the name of the fucking England cricket captain because I was so messed up when I was on air. Like I just couldn't even speak. And it was just a train wreck, right? So my friends come to me, and then I remember one morning, I had an emotional breakdown during the course of the night, called my brother, like total mess. And I wake up and I remember vividly, like the Lions were playing the rugby team were traveling, and I remember my friend Rob, I lived with him at the time. He was a big Lions fan, so I just said to him one morning, I was like, "Listen, man, like, I'm gonna have to say some stuff. I don't know what I'm gonna say. Are you all right to just kind of sit there and listen?" And I just like paced back and forth, drinking a million cups of tea, nipping out for cigarettes, coming back in and talking some more. I wish I'd recorded what I'd said. Like it went on seemingly for hours, and he's like, "Beautiful, brilliant. Thank you for doing that." And I just never stopped from there. I just never stopped talking about how I feel, to the point now where like some of my friends have to say to me like, "Dude, you know what? Sometimes you have to not." Like sometimes, because not everyone's a therapist and not everyone cares as much as me. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Fair enough. I can't just assume that everybody is ready to hear my pain 100% of the time. But I'd rather that than the other way around. And it just kicked off this desire to learn and then to help others to learn, because what actually I had done is I'd cut myself off from empathy. That's why my business is called Empath. I'd cut myself off from empathy to fit in with an ideal of a man that surrounded me. That was, empathy is weak, empathy is for girls, empathy is gay. I didn't come out as bisexual till I was 27 because I'd internalized so much homophobia. All of these things that were akin to being feminine and therefore shouldn't be for men. Well, you know what? Some of it's fucking useful. Some of it's really useful. And I'd cut myself off from it. So it was about regaining that and learning compassion for myself and learning to show it for others, and then realizing the depth and richness of friendships and romantic relationships that I had been missing out on for so long. And just feeling like I have community, because you know the main reason that men are lonely is not because they're physically isolated, it's the emotional isolation. And I don't feel that anymore, because I can reach out to people when I'm in crisis and I know that they'll answer and we'll have a beautiful conversation. But that's taken 10 years of effort to get to that point.
As a therapist now, looking back on that, with all of this knowledge you have, what was it about that moment, about that conversation, and then the actions you took after that was kind of what really helped you?
One of the things that really helped me was for a long time, I kind of disavowed my masculinity because I had convinced myself that it was entirely negative, that it had done me a disservice. And then as I went through challenges and difficulties, you know, the death of my friend and a relationship breakdown and some challenges and difficulties in my like public and professional life, I then realized, well, hang on a minute, like that's not good either. And actually, what the turning point for me was recognizing like there are elements of this kind of masculinity, and I don't think masculine equals male, by the way, but there are elements of these traits and energies that we ascribe to masculinity that were really useful: courage, bravery, being assertive, being a leader, strength of character, and to pick myself back up and to readjust and to co-opt these ideas and point them in a different direction, to say, well, do you know what? It's incredibly brave of me to call my mate and say, I'm struggling, I need help. It took immense levels of courage for me to go to therapy for the first time. The strength of character it took for me to pick myself back up and keep going in this work after the difficulties that I'd been through. Okay, so I can do both, and it makes me a richer, rounder human. So to not disavow masculinity as something toxic, because it's not. To say, well, no, there's something wonderful about masculinity if we can harness it and point it in a good direction. And so that was a huge thing for me. A huge thing to remember, actually, do you know what? The lessons that my dad taught me, some of them were really useful. And actually the foreword to my book was, thank you to my dad for teaching me to be strong, and to my mum for teaching me I didn't always have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And to mesh those together and say, well, actually, I'm all of these things at the same time, and like remind myself that it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be down, it's okay to be miserable or a mess, and it's also okay to dust myself down, pick myself up, and keep going.
Mm-hmm. There's two bits I want to talk to you about, and actually, I want to talk to you about the first time you go to therapy. As somebody who, as you just noted, this is why we're here talking about the fact that men don't go to therapy. And I don't know who your first therapist was, and what that experience was like, and kind of if anything stands out from that.
My first experience of therapy was being recommended a therapist by a friend of mine and turning up at her house, and she wasn't there. She just wasn't there. And I took that as a sign. Okay, then I don't need therapy. Therapy's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't for another 18 months that I went back. And I was paying at the time I was doing a foundation course in counseling. And I decided that I wanted to go back because I was going to train to be a therapist, but also stuff was coming up because of the training that, okay, I didn't want to go and work on. So I went to see this guy. He was very, very good, but he was low cost therapy. He was 20 quid a session because he was just a trainee. I couldn't afford full-time therapy. I couldn't full cost therapy at the time. And for the first 5-6 weeks, not much happened. And then one day I had to say to him, I was like, dude, I really want to stay with you because I like the relationship we're building. But I need you to be a bit more direct with me. I need you to call me out, because at the moment I'm dancing rings around you. You're not actually keeping me on point with stuff. I'm able to just like dismiss something as not important, and you don't hold me to it. The next session he comes back and he tells me he's been speaking to his supervisor about this. And he was like, all right, you're banned from talking about your book. You're banned from talking about all of this work you think you've done on yourself up until now. You're banned from, and I was just like, oh, all right. Great. Now we can start. And it was wonderful. And it was like life-changing, that, because suddenly I didn't have my defense. My defense had always been like, well, look at me. I've done this work on myself, like, come on, Chris, get over yourself, man. And that space was so rich and so brilliant. And, you come away from therapy like shattered into pieces sometimes. And like, that's part of the deal. And going back into these experiences that I've had in my life have been monumentally life-changing. I have this line, like, therapy is not about changing your past, it's about changing your relationship to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened to me. I changed the relationship I had between me and some of these difficulties I'd gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still doing it now. I'm still in therapy now.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes things come back up, and I don't go every week, but I go every so often, because I love that space. And it's a space like no other. You know, the fact that therapists have therapists is what I say to my clients when they're like, my clients are like, oh man, sometimes it's really annoying when you say something that's like so on point that I was so obvious until you say it. And I'm like, yeah, I have that with my therapist where I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, I should have known that because I'm trained in exactly what you've just told me, but we are blind sometimes to our, you know, problem with denial is you don't know you're in it until you're out of it, right? It's the same with blind spots. You don't know you have them until they're pointed out. And that's the beauty of therapy for me.
Yeah. And then, so that was the one of the things that come up. You were talking as like that must have been interesting for you, especially now looking back at it being kind of men for men, right? As such. And the second point was my knowledge of therapy, and I'm a coach, right? Not a therapist, is that they're kind of similar in regards, it's all questions, it's all exploration. But in your talking about masculinity, talking about what masculine means to leadership, all of those other kind of key words you were throwing out, how do you bring that into a therapy session? Because to me, on the outside of this, not had therapy either, it's questions and allowing them to the space to speak and learn and explore. How are you then bringing that knowledge and sharing that into that session?
And I think that's where therapy is changing dramatically. The kind of really traditional psychoanalytic approach, the kind of OG Freudian approach, would be that it's not our job as therapists to direct. We shouldn't suggest. We shouldn't give opinions. That we shouldn't be directive in any way. And I think my clients are on a sliding scale. Like some of my clients are paying me like a pretty penny to come to therapy. I'm the one with the training. I'm the one with the experience. And if my client is saying to me like something, if my client is bringing something and it is so far out of their awareness that I don't think they're ever going to get there, like working with young lads who are dealing with internalized homophobia, and they have no idea. There's no way I can ask them questions. I have to explain what internalized homophobia is to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can also use my own experience to help them understand it. And I can say to them, it seems to me like that is what you are experiencing. And then ask them a question, right? It's not about me sitting there telling them what's wrong with them. And of course, caveating it often with like, please correct me if this isn't right, but it feels like perhaps this is what's going on for you. Or here's a psychological theory which would help to explain what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Can really help.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you're expressing is part of it. Is a lot of men, they have this sense in therapy. I've seen some research, like a lot of men think that in therapy they'll come. Some men think that the therapist won't even speak.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just sit there and be blank. Mm-hmm. You know, this like, oh, whoever speaks first loses type nonsense. You know, I had a client years ago, and he won't mind me saying this because it's not about a personal thing. I had a client years ago who came to me after doing some trauma work. And the reason that he left, he went to see a trauma specialist, and he said he went into the room, and the first thing that she said was she had 3 different chairs. Why did you choose that chair? And his initial response was, fuck off. Like, what? Because it looks comfy. Like, I'm here to talk about trauma. Like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. When my clients come, the first thing I say is, like, it's weird, this, isn't it? It's weird. Like, you don't know who I am. Like, I'm a stranger to you. Mm-hmm. Like, you are like, can we acknowledge that this is strange? Because it is. It's weird.
Now I'm going to ask you to open up to me. You don't even know who I am.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm going to ask you a load of stuff about yourself, and like, what, you're just meant to trust me out of like straight away? Like that? No. Yeah. I'm going to try and earn your trust. We're going to do that together. We'll earn each other's trust. All right. Can we agree to that as a starting point? Right. Okay.
Yeah. And this is why I think I connected with you straight away when we spoke about this. It's just like it's that connection, that down to earthness, which I think can bring that out of people. Yeah. Gone.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and Jacqueline just made a good point. Jacqueline Kerrs, I found that challenge and compassion works well working with men. What do I think? Yeah. What my supervisor, so those that don't know, therapists have supervisors, at least they should have, in my opinion. And I go to my supervisor with like, I've done this with a client and I've got no idea on whether or not this was appropriate or a good intervention, whatever. But my therapist says that actually a lot of the time, if we're a man working with a man, very often what we're doing is we're embodying the compassionate dad that they never had.
Mm-hmm.
And compassionate dad is not their son, everything is somebody else's fault. It's, hey, that's hard for you. All right, what do we do about it? You know, that's the compassionate dad. It's, yes, actually, what you've experienced is tough and challenging, and I fully am understanding of that. All right, well, then what do we do about it? Like, what's next? You know, the compassionate dad, rather than the dad that most of us had, which is like, just get up and keep running. Don't tell me that you're hurting. No, don't show pain. It's like, no. Hey, show me your pain. Let's witness your pain together. Okay, yes, your pain is real. Good.
Cool.
Let's keep going.
Yeah. Now, how are you going to keep going?
The compassionate dad. Yeah. So exactly, Jacqueline. And it's, you know, calling it out. It's why I say to my clients before we even start together, I'm going to call you on your bullshit, because I'm pretty certain you need that, because I know I needed it and still do. You can ask my wife, still do.
Yeah, but this is where I like the combination of you do with the coaching and the therapy, because I see it from my side, not being a therapist, and I'm going to caveat as well, is I think men don't resonate with that, as you said, the soft approach, the head tilt, as Nick put it earlier on. I think I might be wrong here, and so you please do correct me. But my view is we like to look forward. We're problem solvers. We're challenged. We want to sometimes do the hard work, and I feel like that combination of that compassionate dad and the challenge and that, along with the emotional support and someone there being in their corner, taking the punches with them, allowing them to go and trial and error stuff, it makes things right. For me, with my coaching, I feel like that's how I resonate with men well.
Because you're still doing the compassion work with coaching, right? You're not being a dick to your clients, right? No, like, well, I hope not. But like, what we're talking about here is, for a lot of men, and Nick just said in the comments, he only wanted a female therapist in the last 2 years because he was brought up in a highly competitive male-only school. Me too, right? I went to an all-boys school, and so think about what men have considered to be male-only spaces up until very recently, with the advent of like Talk Club, Andy's Man Club, you know, all of these amazing organizations where men go and speak to other men. Until recently, male-only spaces were not emotionally compassionate. So then they look at the therapy space and they see, well, it's all women, right? So that's not really a space for men. So why would I come to therapy? Why would I'm not going to be, you know, I get my clients to prepay blocks of 4 because of the high dropout rate. I work in the PT model, right? The coaching, you probably do too. The coaching model, right? And at the end of the 4th session, we always have a check-in, and the check-in often involves them saying, yeah, do you know what? This is the first time I've sat in a space with someone and talk about my emotions and I've not felt judged. I haven't felt judged. Like, right, good. Nice that, isn't it? It's pretty good. I mean, we are trained unconditional positive regard. It's one of my favorite things I ever learned about in therapy. It's that you could come rich and you could be a stone cold racist, and I'm not going to judge you for being racist. I'm going to find out why you're a racist, what happened to you along the way, because no one's born racist. And that's beautiful and brilliant. And that experience of being not judged is life changing. But it's also something that a lot of guys don't trust. It takes a long time to build trust for men, because male-only spaces aren't things to be trusted in terms of our emotional capacities and our emotional engagement. So I understand that for me, it's up to me. It's incumbent upon me to prove to them that I'm not going to judge them, and to keep reminding them I'm not going to judge them, and to keep saying to them, and you know, it's why I make the joke, like, I hope also empathy and compassion, as well as the calling you on your bullshit, because that's just as important. They need to feel the empathy and the compassion, as well as the nudging and the encouragement. And if you can get that mix, and that's where, to me, the coaching model comes in really well, because the coaching is, you know, some of the best football coaches I ever had were the ones that would take me to one side if I'm not performing and saying, hey, Chris, what's going on? And that same guy 20 minutes later would be screaming at me to get my lazy ass up off the ground and start running again. Okay, both, not just one or the other. You know, I think about Alex Ferguson. You hear about Alex Ferguson, former United manager, Man United fan. All you hear is, is the hairdryer treatment, the screaming, the shouting. But he was a genius man manager.
Mhm.
He would get to know their families. He got to know every single person who worked in that football club.
Mhm.
He created compassion and understanding and wanting to work together. And when your clients, one thing that my co-host on No Man's an Island and I have talked about in one of the episodes is we're not taught as therapists in training to be like cheerleaders for our clients. How do we work with positivity, encouragement? Like, how do we, at the end of every session, I want to leave my clients with something positive. You're doing well. I know this is hard. Keep going. I'm proud of you. Like, when has a man ever told another man that he's proud of him?
Mhm.
You know, I
Mhm.
tell my clients I'm proud of them if I genuinely feel it.
Mhm.
And I do very often.
Mhm.
And it can just be so affirming.
Yeah.
But men don't see that. Men don't think that's what therapy is. They think it's this, they think it's a middle-aged woman in a shawl with the glass at the end of her nose, with the little thing with the beads on her glasses, right?
Mhm.
Writing notes. Well, actually, no, it's some former knobhead from Manchester can sit across from you and be like, all right, what's going on? Tell me about it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I don't think there's many people like you, Chris, and I might be wrong there, but I can't mention there is many people like you who are this confident to do the coaching or the therapy in the way that you do. So then, this is a lesson for therapists as well here in regards to like actually maybe changing some of those approaches, which I think this chat has been really useful at highlighting. Obviously, looking at the questions between man and female therapists, and actually it's more about the approach. And also different life experiences. Nick saying here, like needing, as you said, needing a female therapist. And so these different things are important when trying to find someone. So it's about understanding that as well, which makes it complicated, right? And so you go back to this title of why don't men go to therapy? Well, we've thrown out a bunch of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Just there. So how then do we help people?
Well, and Nick's asked more info on the PT coaching model. What I do, Nick, is I work in prepaid blocks of 4, because if men are going to leave therapy early, if you haven't paid for a session, it's much easier for you to not turn up.
Mhm.
So my clients have already paid for their sessions ahead of time.
Mhm.
So lo and behold, what do? Well, they keep coming, and so often I hear like, do you know what? If I hadn't already paid, I wouldn't be here. And I'm like, well, good, because those are the sessions that you really need to come. Is when you don't want to go there. Like, I'm a little overweight right now. I'm going to have to go to the gym later, even though it's snowing here in Denmark, and I don't want to go. But those are the sessions that you're going to get the most benefit from, because I'm going to go and do some exercise when otherwise I'm going to sit on the sofa.
And so, have you read Drive by Daniel Pink?
No, I haven't.
There's a bit in there around motivation and like the accountability piece, and actually prepaying means you're more motivated to put the work in. And so that's where the PT model, coming from my personal training background and now a coaching background, getting people to pay up for more links to that motivation piece as well.
And it doesn't cost them anymore. And I tell them, actually, if they want to cancel halfway through a block of 4, they are allowed to, and I'll give them a refund. And you know what? That's happened once.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened once. And it also means I'm not chasing them for money when they, all the time. Like, they've already paid. If they haven't paid, I don't do the session with them. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm flexible very rarely, right? Someone's payday is a bit whatever, but like, yeah, if you don't pay, you don't come, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have paid, you're way more likely to come. So there's a good question somebody asked before, which is, have I got thoughts on having a male or female therapist? And actually, I've said this many times. Men's Therapy Hub is never, ever, ever about saying that men should have a female therapist. Absolutely not. Nor is it saying that I even think that men are necessarily better therapists for men. I just think that if we want more men to come to therapy, having a space that is male only makes them more likely to come. Andy's Man Club is successful because it's male only. If Andy's Man Club had one woman in that space every session, the guys would not be there. The sessions would be entirely different. Mm-hmm. So I've had female therapists inquire about joining Men's Therapy Hub, and I'm like, thank you, but actually we're keeping it protected because we are a minority and we want more men to come. So I have this idea for an advert once I've got some money, which will probably be never, but like, which is unsure about therapy. We get it. We were too. Men's Therapy Hub, male therapists for men. Because 99 or 95%, just a random number I've pulled out, 95% of the men who are therapists also had that moment of the first time they went to therapy, like, what the hell is this? We were unsure about it too. We were all floundering around, struggling. And then, the vast majority of men go to therapy in a point of crisis, which means the vast majority of male therapists went to therapy first time at a point of crisis. I did. So we get it. That's the point. We get it. And like Steve said, if we want to start by hiring more men, if we want to fix therapy's PR problem, start by hiring more men. Exactly. Diversifying the therapist pool. Exactly. That's what Men's Therapy Hub is all about. Thank you, Steve. That's exactly what Men's Therapy Hub is about. It's about trying to encourage more men into therapy by saying, look, we're a load of men over here who are male, and we want to work with you because you're a man, and we want you to train as a therapist because you're a man, and there's not enough of us. And if you're a black guy, like, please, damn it, like, we desperately need you. Like, if you're Asian, if you're not a middle class guy like me, Jesus, we need you. Like, even more than you need me. And just go and look at Men's Therapy Hub and look at the diversity of voices on there. It's fantastic, and I'm so proud of it. 165 therapists have signed up already, right? That's the easy bit was building the website. The middle bit was getting the therapists to come on. The hard bit now is getting the men to come. And they are doing slowly and surely. Slowly, they're starting to come. And I said to you before we came on air, like, I've already had one guy message me to say that he's found a therapist through Men's Therapy Hub and it's changed his life. So as far as I'm concerned, like, done. Success. Everything else from there is a bonus. But if we can encourage, one day we'd love to have a fund to help to help men pay for either therapy sessions or to train as therapists or both, right? It's the first time anything like this has been done, so let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I went back to this PR thing because I don't know why it's stuck in my head, and there's this thing about maybe the education, as you said. No, the education is beginning to come. There is this male focus on it, but with what we've spoken about, the fact that we need to be challenged slightly here, we need to have that compassionate dad approach to this. Is there something in the word, like the titles of what we therapy? Should you as therapists be using a different term that make people more accepting of this?
This is a tough one for me. Like, in schools, I would always say the people who call themselves counselors, when you're working with boys, just call yourself a mentor, something like that if you're a man. But I think I don't want to change. There's increasingly different challenges between, am I a psychotherapist? Am I a counselor? It kind of depends on my training, but also does it? Am I a coach? I call myself therapist and coach. And if you're not ready and willing to come and see somebody with that name, go and see somebody else. Go and see a coach, right? But the people who need to come and see a therapist are dealing with ordinarily different things than the people who need to go and see a coach. Sometimes, obviously, the Venn diagram overlaps somewhat. There are people, if someone comes to me and it's like, I'm really struggling in my career, I don't know what to do next, I'd be like, go and see someone like you, actually, Rich. Like, go and see Rich, right? He would be much better served. But if someone comes to you and they're dealing with, like, trauma from their past, I presume, you would say
part of our regulations, we have to transfer across. We're not qualified. No, did it recently, actually.
Exactly. And that's it. And it's about recognizing and what Steve is talking about is therapy has a PR problem. And the really frustrating thing about it is, if you think about how few men go to therapy, the therapy profession actually is missing out on a boatload of cash for men. If we can get more men into therapy, that is going to encourage more men to become therapists, which means more money in the therapy world. Like, it's so obvious to me, and yet the big organizations don't seem interested. I'm gonna keep trying to push to get them interested because I think it's important. But you know what? All of this starts with therapy courses recognizing that if we accept, as we do, that gender socialization still happens, and it very much still does, that men have been socialized differently in terms of engaging with their emotions, then men are going to need a different approach.
Mhm.
And until men start to feel like therapy is representative of them and is a space for them, and we have these sorts of conversations where I'm going like, guys, seriously, it's not what you think. Some of them are, but go and see, Luke talking about, I found walking, talking can be of benefit to some clients. Like, yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
There are guys out there who will not sit down face to face with you and not ask you why you chose a certain chair. And they'll just be like, all right, this is weird, right? Can we acknowledge that? And
Mhm.
can we just try our best? And can we acknowledge that this is going to be difficult? And you're going to feel like shit some weeks and you're going to not want to come. But can we call in that courage and bravery that you've got? Because you're going to need it.
Mhm.
Because it will take that. Meeting men where they are, meeting them in their reality.
There's so much. I'm also trying to read these notes as well, and there's so much good stuff in the comments that people are talking about. And I think I see consistently here is the elements of coaching in it, which I really like, and I see this play out with my coaching. Right, is that actually the compassionate dad is saying, which probably I will take away and talk about when I refer people to therapy, hopefully finding the right therapist these people in which need it. Is that's actually, it's a great space to have that support and be able to talk about it, but also men in general need that. Okay, so I can feel your pain, but how are we going to overcome this? How are we going to get through this? How are you going to get back up and play and get back on that pitch as such?
Yeah, it's the yes and approach.
Yeah.
It's yes, you're struggling, and we're going to work so we can come through it. And you know what? That might take 20 sessions. It might take 200 sessions. It takes as long as it takes.
Mhm.
And you can't win at therapy. That's one of my favorite things that I say to my clients. Like, it's usually like session 4, 5, 6 in, and I'm like, are you trying to win at therapy? Are you trying to be the best therapy client there's ever been because you think that I'm going to give you a pat on the back? Like, the way to be actually a really good therapy client is to stop trying to be the best at therapy and just be yourself.
Mhm.
Right? But also sometimes you can call in that competitiveness to be like, all right, well, last week you tried to not masturbate or not use porn and you did it 3 times. This week, can we do 2? Right? Because that's a win. Right? Or last week you drank 5 days of the week. This week, can you drink 4? Because that's a win.
Mhm.
And speaking to men on their terms, but the therapeutic space doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like they're designed with men in mind. And
Mhm.
that's the big challenge that we have. And
Mhm.
until we start to, like, I always think that therapy has always been a bit cloak and dagger, like, oh, we know what we're doing and we're going to sit here and we're going to be like a bit holier than thou.
Mhm.
That's just
Yeah,
nonsense.
I can feel
Not.
that. Yeah.
We're just trained in this like one thing,
Yeah.
right? We're not better people than you. We're not better at anything other than perhaps a bit of emotional regulation. But you know what? A lot of therapists are pretty shit at that too.
I guess that's a really good point as well, right? Like I found same within the mental health first aid space, right? People go into mental health first aid because they've probably had an experience of it. And so it'd be interesting to know from the courses, and actually people maybe listening as well, if you've done your therapy course, have you gone into it because of maybe an experience that you've gone through and have gone, actually, this is now my passion because I want to help other people not go through that.
And that is usually the pipeline for men to get into therapy, is they've had therapy themselves, or they've gone to some kind of therapeutic adjacent space and realize that they're good at it and have been encouraged into it by their therapist or by their friends or whatever. And that's why the more spaces that we can create that are therapeutic, and yours is a therapeutic space, of course, Men's Therapy Hub Therapy is a therapeutic space, Andy's Man Club is a therapeutic space. There are so many spaces that are therapeutic. And the more that we can get men in, the more likely we are that men will funnel down the pipeline and become therapists or become coaches or become facilitators. And it's kind of like a pyramid scheme, right? It's like a really healing pyramid scheme. And I love it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Look, I'm going to begin to ask some final questions because otherwise we'll just be here for another hour, just chewing the fat. If you could get one message out there to get men into therapy, what would it be?
It's this. If it's like early autumn or fall, if you're in the US, and you realize you need a new winter coat, maybe your one from last year got damaged or something. You don't go into the first shop, try one on, and go, do you know what? I'll just freeze this winter. You go into the first shop, you try one on, and you think, nah, that one's not for me. And you go out the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and then the next weekend until you find one that fits you and looks good and feels right and is within a reasonable price range. You don't just go, well, I don't need a coat. I can just brave this on my own, because that would be absurd. But that is the mentality that we have. You need help to stay warm, right? You need help to, this idea of the lone wolf, the Sigma male that is becoming so pervasive. Like, if you want to be a lone wolf, go and live in the fucking woods. Like, nobody is a lone wolf. You don't make your own clothes.
Isolation kills as well, right?
Right. Like, but also, like, you don't make your own clothes. You don't tarmac your own roads. You don't grow your own food. You're not a lone wolf. Like, we all depend on people. But if we can break down this and say there are guys out there who want to meet you in your reality, who have had similar experiences to you, right? If I sound like the worst possible guy in the world for you to speak to, good, go and speak to somebody else. If I sound like somebody that actually you might get along with, send me an email, get in touch. There are 165 therapists on Men's Therapy Hub. There are thousands of male therapists out there. There are thousands of therapists out there. There are a load of women who specialize in working with men. And like, Godspeed to them. Go and find the people who will help you to feel most comfortable. And yeah, somebody asked before, do I do a complimentary session? Absolutely. Most therapists now will do a free 30-minute session. I do a free 15-minute session. And I say to those guys, like, are you seeing other people other than me? No. I would recommend that you do. Go and speak to somebody else. Go and have a conversation with other therapists, because they might be better fit from you. Go and try on those coats, because there's a coat out there that's going to be the right one for you and you're going to feel good wearing. And recognize that it takes an immense level of courage to reach out for help. And you have that. You were raised in a culture that has taught you to be brave and tough and strong. Well, prove it in this way, because it is going to benefit you long term, and it'll be the best investment you ever make.
I love that. And actually, I think that's how we're going to close out. I love the analogy. I really do. The coach analogy is fantastic. And it's so true. To find somebody who you connect with, who's going to help and support you in that moment. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody who's jumped on this chat. It's been amazing to have this many kind of voices sharing, communicating. So I really appreciate you guys turning up, listening to Chris and myself. It is, I think, Nick asked this question. This will be downloaded and added to my YouTube and my Spotify, where you can find other conversations with other people in many different kind of spaces, this being one of them. So you can explore more if you want to. But this is always going to be here on this link as well. So yeah, keep share it as you like. Please do. But everybody else, thank you for joining. And then Chris, thank you. I appreciate this. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing all of this. I think it's been really insightful. And I think by the amount of comments and chat in the comments you've made and had an impact on everybody else as well.
Thank you. And can I just say, if you are interested, go to menstherapyhub.co.uk and check out our work. And if you're interested in hearing more of my voice, which maybe many of you wouldn't like, you can check out No Man's an Island, which is our podcast, which myself and Jet Stone, a clinical psychologist from the US, we co-host it. And we're having fascinating chats, and we'll get you on it at some point in the future, Rich, to talk about coaching.
Yeah, wicked. No, thanks. Yeah, I was going to give you that call to action.
Oh,
thanks for jumping in and doing it. And if you want to have a chat with me, I'm obviously performance coach, leadership team coach as well. So if you want to know anything about that and how I can implement that within teams, then please do reach out to me as well, or just connect with me and see what I'm doing as well. Next session is I've actually got a week off. I'm in Egypt next week, so the week after,
talking about
some cool bits. So come and connect with us. Keep an eye out for what we're doing there as well. In the meanwhile, have a fantastic finish to the week, and I will see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you, Rich.
Cheers, Chris. Stay where you are.